Your grandmother had a drawer in the kitchen that nobody else in the house could open without asking, and inside it sat 7 pieces of metal and wood that did the work of a $40 food processor. Number 20 on this list pitted 4 pounds of sour cherries in 12 minutes flat. Number 13 turned 6 egg whites into stiff peaks before the toaster popped. Number 6 on this list grated a full block of cheddar in under a minute. None of these tools are gone because they failed. The big box stores stopped stocking them when plastic was cheaper to ship. These 25 forgotten kitchen tools were so reliable that home cooks threw them out without writing down what they did. Hit subscribe if you remember any of these. These 25 forgotten kitchen tools belong back in every American home. Number 25, Foley Food Mill. A Foley food mill stamped with the 1932 patent number could pit, peel, and puree what a $40 processor pretends to do today. The mill rolled off the Foley plant assembly line in the 1930s, and the slogan, "It is easier with Foley utensils," sat on the side of every package the company shipped. Mothers used it for applesauce in October, tomato sauce in August, and baby food in between. You boil the fruit soft, drop it whole into the basin with skins and seeds, and turn the handle. The pulp presses through the holes and drops into the bowl below. The skins, seeds, and core stay up. No motor, no blade to dull, no filter to replace. Julia Child kept one on a hook in her kitchen and named it the one tool she would never replace, and most homes pitched theirs once the food processor showed up. The processor liquefies, the Foley separates. They are not the same machine. Applesauce from a Foley still has texture, and your tomato sauce still has body. Number 24, Pyrex Measuring Cup. The numbers ran up the side in red ink that Corning started printing around 1940, and the spout was set deep enough that you could pour boiling sugar syrup without it dribbling down the outside. A 1941 catalog page read, "Note how easy it is to read red markings." The glass was tempered. The handle was a closed D-loop, the kind you could hook a thumb through while pouring. 3 sizes covered every recipe: the 5081 cup, the 5162 cup, and the 5324 cup. Generations of bakers measured by feel and read the line as a check. A grandmother in Akron, Ohio, used the same 516 from 1947 to 1989. The cup went through 42 years of pie crusts, biscuit doughs, and Sunday morning pancake batters. The plastic measuring cups that replaced them warp in the dishwasher and fog over by the second year. Your Pyrex 516 from 1947 still pours straight today. Number 23, White Mountain Ice Cream Churn. A Tennessee farmhouse pulled one out every Sunday afternoon and set it on the covered porch with a sack of rock salt and a bucket of crushed ice beside it. White Mountain had been founded in Laconia, New Hampshire in 1853, and by the post-war years, their 5- and 6-quart freezers turned up on the screened porches of homes from Vermont to Texas. You poured cream, sugar, vanilla, and a few eggs into the metal canister, packed crushed ice and rock salt around it, and turned the crank for 40 minutes. The first 10 minutes were easy, and the children all wanted a turn. The middle 20 got serious as the cream began to thicken against the dasher. The last 10 were the children's job because the adults' arms had given out. Ice cream pulled from that bucket tasted like real cream and real sugar because that was all that was in it. The 1.5-quart electric churn whips air into the cream. White Mountain did not. It froze flavor. Number 22, Tin Nutmeg Grater. The aroma of fresh grated nutmeg over a custard pie comes from a tool the size of your thumb that hangs from a nail beside the spice shelf. You open the cap, drop the seed against the grating surface, and rub it across the punched holes when your recipe asks for a small pinch. The pre-ground jar at the supermarket lost half its volatile oils within weeks of opening. The seed in your hand keeps every drop. The tool weighs almost nothing, and the seed inside lasts a year. The seed goes back inside the lid for next time, ready for the next pie or the next pot of mulled wine. The smell stays in your air for hours after the pie cools, like wood smoke and orange peel. You can still buy whole nutmeg seeds at any decent grocer for less than the cost of a pre-ground jar, and your custard will tell you the difference at the second bite. Your eggnog will tell you the same. Number 21. Miro Cookie Press. The wreath disc was the one every grandmother reached for first when the holiday tin came out. The press comes with 12 interchangeable discs: stars, wreaths, Christmas trees, hearts, daisies, and a flower that nobody ever names the same way twice. You fill the cylinder, screw on a disc, and press the plunger to release a shape onto your sheet. A practiced hand turns out 4 dozen spritz cookies in 9 minutes flat. Sugar and butter and almond extract on the air, little hands waiting for the rejects. The pre-cut cookie dough roll on the supermarket shelf yields uniform circles with no shape and no story. The Miro Press pays for itself the first holiday it comes out of your cabinet. Pick a disc, pull the lever, smell what your kitchen used to smell like every December. The press itself fits inside any drawer with the discs stored in a small velvet bag, and the whole kit lasts longer than any electric cookie machine sold today. Number 20. Cast iron cherry pitter. The clack of the lever and the spit of the pit hitting an enamel bowl meant pies were coming, and a bowl of sugar was already measured on the counter in Door County, Wisconsin, every July. David Goodell of Antrim, New Hampshire, patented the lathe-style apple parer in 1864, and his company branched into cherry pitters by the 1890s. The pitter clamped to a table edge with a cast-iron screw the size of a thumb, and the operator dropped sour Montmorency cherries into the funnel singly, pulled the lever down, and the pit dropped through one hole into a small jar, while the fruit fell out the other into a colander. A practiced hand cleared 4 pounds in 12 minutes. The plastic squeeze pitter on the modern shelf does 1 cherry at a time, takes 90 seconds for 10 cherries, and bruises the flesh as it works. Pie cherries that hold their shape come from a tool that has been out of production for 40 years. The cast iron version still grips the rim of your kitchen table the way the original buyer screwed it down. Number 19. Wooden butter mold. A sycamore butter mold carved with a wheat sheaf told every Lancaster market buyer which farm the brick had come from before he took a single bite. The mold was carved from sycamore or maple, smooth on the outside and reverse cut inside. A farmer's wife salted the butter from the morning churn, packed it into the cylinder, pressed the wooden plunger, and the 8-ounce brick came out stamped with a pattern that told the buyer at the stall which farm it came from. Wheat sheaves, a swan, a pineapple, an acorn. Each farm had its own. The pattern was a signature, and the buyer at the market knew the cream from the Schwartz farm tasted different from the Yoder farm down the road. A creamery in Bryan, Ohio, bought one of these molds in 1947 for about $3 and kept using it for the local route until 1968. Today, the supermarket butter is extruded from a stainless steel die and wrapped in foil. It tastes the same on every shelf in every state. But hand-stamped butter from a Lancaster County mold tastes of the cream the cows gave that week and the grass they ate the week before. Number 18. Apple Peeler Corer Slicer. A White Mountain peeler clamped to a Vermont counter could turn 40 Northern Spy apples into pie filling before the oven finished preheating. Goodell first patented the lathe-style peeler in 1864, and White Mountain kept the cast-iron version in production right through the 1950s. You clamped the tool to the counter with a wingnut screw, jammed an apple onto the 3-prong fork, and turned the crank. In 10 seconds, the apple came off in one continuous spiral peel, cored down the center, sliced into a fan, ready for a pie crust. 40 apples for a sheet of pies took 12 minutes. Children fought over who got to eat the long peel and dropped the curl into their mouth like a ribbon of October. The plastic version on the modern kitchen aisle costs $22 and breaks at the gear within a year of use. A 1956 cast-iron White Mountain still works on every apple variety grown in your state today. Number 17. Mooley Rotary Grater. The drum is removable for cleaning, the handle reverses for left-handed cooks, and the whole tool weighs less than a paperback novel. You squeeze the hinged handle to clamp a chunk of Parmesan against the drum, turn the crank with your other hand, and a steady fall of grated cheese comes over your pasta. 40 seconds for a full plate, 60 seconds for a casserole. The boxed grated cheese in the dairy aisle is 4 times the price per ounce and contains cellulose powder to keep it from clumping. The mouli grates exactly enough when you want it. Nothing dries out, nothing wastes. The yellow plastic handle is still bright at the bottom of an estate sale box, and a mouli pulled from that box still grates the cheese the way it tasted before the food industry sold us a plastic bag of dust. A whole wedge of Parmesan stays whole in your fridge for weeks, and the mouli takes only what your dish needs. Number 16. Glass Reamer Juicer. The Reamer is a fluted glass dome on a small saucer with a pour spout. You cut a Valencia orange in half, press the cut side onto the dome, twist in a slow circle, and the juice runs down the flutes into the saucer below. The pulp catches on the ridges. The seeds stay up. 2 oranges fill a small juice glass. There is no motor, no plastic, no power cord to wrap behind the bread box. The whole tool runs through your dishwasher with the breakfast plates. A high-end electric citrus juicer sells today for too much and lives in a cabinet most of the year because it takes longer to disassemble and clean than to use it. The glass Reamer sits on your counter, used and washed in the same minute. Orange juice from a glass Reamer pours into a clean glass before your toast pops. Number 15. Pie crust pastry fork. The tines are short, sharp, and angled, and the tool cuts cold butter into flour the way a knife never could. You work the butter into the flour until the mix looks like coarse cornmeal, then sprinkle ice water from a spoon and press the dough into a disc for your ice box. The pie crust from a hand-cut pastry fork is flaky in layers because the butter pieces stay cold and stay separate from the flour, and the heat of the oven turns each piece into a pocket of steam. The food processor pulses the butter into a paste. Your pastry fork keeps it whole. A 2-crust apple pie made with a hand-cut fork breaks into shards on your plate, and that is exactly the texture a good crust should have. The fork goes through your dishwasher and dries on the rack, and a $4 pastry fork from any hardware store will outbake the food processor on every Thanksgiving pie crust you bring to the table. Number 14. Handy Things Potato Ricer. The Handy Things plant stamped its red-handled ricer out of heavy-gauge steel and shipped truckloads to Sears and Ward's through the post-war years. The basin had a hinged plunger that pressed a hot peeled russet through the perforated steel until fine white threads dropped into the bowl below. The russets came out as a cloud, folded with butter and warm milk straight away. No lumps, no gluey paste. The hand mixer with the dough hooks turns potatoes into wallpaper paste in under a minute, and the gluten in the starch develops as the metal beaters spin. A new ricer is widely available at any hardware store. The ricer is slower than the mixer by 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes are the difference between cafeteria food and Sunday dinner. Number 13. Wire balloon whisk. The soft hiss of a hand-formed wire dome against a cold copper bowl on a Chicago Saturday morning whipped 6 egg whites into stiff peaks in under 3 minutes. The French whip, also called the balloon whisk, was a wire dome with 12 to 16 loops welded into a wooden handle. A grandmother in Lake Forest, Illinois, used hers for 42 years. The peaks held long enough to fold into a soufflé without deflating between the bowl and the oven. The hand mixer with the beater attachments hits the same peaks faster, but the eggs lose half their air on the way to the oven because the metal heats them as it spins at 1,400 revolutions per minute. The wire whisk does not heat. It moves air through the whites without bruising the protein. A copper bowl from any kitchen store lasts a lifetime. The cake rises higher and falls slower. An angel food cake from a 1958 wire whisk on a copper bowl will still be on your counter at supper. Number 12. Glass salt cellar. A small open dish with a tiny bone spoon laid across the rim sat on the table beside the pepper grinder for every meal in rural Indiana in 1957. There was no shaker. The cook took a pinch of coarse salt with bone spoon or fingertips and dropped it into the pot or onto the plate. The seasoning went where it was wanted, in the amount the dish asked for, never the lid falls off accident of the modern shaker dumping a teaspoon into your bowl by mistake. Salt in an open cellar stays dry because the dish breathes through the room air. Salt in a sealed shaker clumps in humid weather and stops pouring by the 3rd week of August. The cellar moved off the table around 1965, when the shaker became a brand item with a logo on the side and a magazine ad selling iodized table salt as modern. The food started to taste different. Most cooks blamed the salt itself, when the change was the spoon, not the seasoning. Number 11. Wagner Cast Iron Skillet. A 10¼ inch Wagner skillet was made in Sydney, Ohio, somewhere between 1920 and 1955. Polished smooth on the inside, and its bottom carried the same number stamp until the day Wagner sold to Textron in 1959. One that traveled from Sydney to a coal stove in Greenville, Mississippi in 1932 fed 3 generations of one family before it was passed to a granddaughter in 1991. She still cooks cornbread in it on Sunday morning. Griswold and Wagner were the 2 leading American makers from the 1870s into the 1950s, and both companies polished every skillet smooth after casting, an extra step that gave the iron its near non-stick surface after seasoning. Lodge Manufacturing started in 1896 in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and is the only one of the 3 still in family hands today. Modern Lodge skillets come out of the foundry rough-textured, never polished. They work, but they are not the same tool. A vintage Wagner sears a steak with a crust the rough modern skillet cannot match. It bakes a cornbread with edges that release without a knife. It seasons darker every year, and the surface improves with every meal cooked in it. A vintage Wagner sells today for between $60 and $200 at an estate sale, depending on size and condition. A new boutique skillet sells for $290 and arrives sand-cast and unfinished. Here is what's often overlooked. The Wagner you find at a barn auction was made when an American foundry finished its own iron. It will outlast the granddaughter who buys it. It will probably outlast her granddaughter too. Hand it down. Season it well. Use it on Sunday morning. Cornbread releases, steaks crust, eggs slide. Your kitchen gains a tool that does not retire. Number 10. Presto Pressure Cooker. In 1939, the National Pressure Cooker Company introduced the saucepan-style Presto at the New York World's Fair, and by 1945 there were more Prestos in American homes than all 11 competing brands combined. Aunts and grandmothers used the 4-quart aluminum cooker for pot roast in 50 minutes instead of 3 hours, dried beans in 20 minutes instead of overnight soaking and a long simmer, and chicken stock in 40 minutes that tasted like it had simmered all day. The cooker rocked on the stove with a controlled hiss, and a kitchen timer kept everyone honest. The slow cooker took over in the 1970s because it asked for less attention from the cook. The Presto still took the same dish from raw to dinner in under an hour. A Presto from 1953 with a new gasket costs about $10 to restore and still cooks faster than the modern electric pressure cooker on your counter. Cooking under pressure is the same physics now as it was then. The aluminum recipe has stayed the same for 86 years. Number 9. Wire Egg Slicer. A hinged frame with 11 steel wires pressed down on a hard-boiled egg cradled in a base, and in one motion the whole egg sliced into uniform rounds. A diner cook in Columbus, Ohio, used one in 1962 to slice 400 eggs in a Saturday morning shift. Garnish for chef's salad, topping for deviled ham, layer for an egg salad sandwich. The wire pulled clean through the white, through the yolk, never tore the slice. The plastic egg slicers sold today have wires that stretch and bend after 100 eggs. And the 1948 chrome model with the red enamel base will still slice the 400th egg as cleanly as the first one. A diner that still uses one is a diner worth eating in. The whole tool fits in a drawer beside the cheese grater. Most kitchens lost it when egg salad fell out of style. Number 8. Tupperware Crispet. Tupperware introduced the Crispet in the 1960s as a 4-piece set: a bowl, a domed lid with a depressed pull-tab seal, a removable round grate, and a center spike that held a head of iceberg lettuce stationary above any moisture pooling at the bottom. A jadeite green Crispet in a Cleveland kitchen kept a Saturday lettuce head crisp through Wednesday supper. You pulled leaves as you needed them, never lifted the whole head. The dome sealed every time you put it back, with the soft thump that every Tupperware seal made for 40 years. The plastic clamshell salad container at the supermarket today is a single-use vessel that ends up in the recycling bin after one meal, sometimes two if your kitchen is careful. The 1968 Crispit is still on countertops in 2026 and still makes lettuce last 6 days longer than a refrigerator crisper drawer. Estate sale price, about $3. Number 7. Wooden rolling pin. Rolling out a circle of pierogi dough thin enough to read a newspaper through is what Saturday morning sounded like in a Polish kitchen in Hamtramck, Michigan, for 51 years. The pin was carved from a single piece of maple, 18 to 20 inches long, and the tapered ends gave the cook control over thickness while rolling. The wood absorbed flour without needing to be redusted every roll. It never warped in humidity. It never cracked when knocked off the counter. The silicone rolling pin sold today does not stick to dough, but it also does not absorb flour, so the dough sticks to itself instead. And the maple pin handed down from a grandmother carries the flour memory of 1,000 pies. That memory is part of the dough. A new maple pin from a hardware store costs about $15. An estate sale pin with 50 years on it is half that price and twice the tool. Number 6. Box cheese grater. Working a chunk of sharp cheddar across a 4-sided sheet of stamped tin while a pot of macaroni boiled on the burner behind you was supper in 9 out of 10 American kitchens between 1945 and 1985. The grater had a different cut on each face: fine, medium, coarse, and a slicing slot, and it sat on a cutting board beside the pot. A mother in Cincinnati, Ohio, could grate 8 ounces of cheddar in 50 seconds for macaroni and cheese for 6 children. The shredded bagged cheese at the supermarket has a coating of potato starch and natamycin to keep it from clumping. It melts greasy and pools at the edge of the dish. Cheese off a box grater melts smooth and pulls in long strings because nothing sits between the cheese and the heat. The tool is $6 at any hardware store. It outlasts the buyer, and likely the buyer's children. Number 5. Hand crank meat grinder. Use the second plate, the grandmother said, the one with the bigger holes, when she let the grandchild grind chuck for meatloaf in her Akron, Ohio kitchen in 1971. The grinder clamped to the counter edge with a cast iron screw. The chuck went into the funnel, cut into 1-inch cubes, the crank turned, and the meat came out in soft ribbons through whichever plate was screwed on. Coarse for chili, medium for meatloaf, fine for breakfast sausage. 3 pounds of chuck took 4 minutes and gave the cook control over fat ratio that no supermarket package could match. The food processor pulses meat into a paste. The grinder cuts each strand clean, and the texture in the meatloaf separates a brick from a tender slice. A 1948 cast iron grinder runs about $28 at an estate sale today, and the same model in a hardware store today is closer to $70. It will outlast every appliance with a power cord on your shelf, and the meatloaf you make next Tuesday will tell you why. Number 4. Serrated bread knife. 8 inches of carbon steel with a wavy edge riveted into a black laminate handle, and the knife cut a fresh loaf of farmhouse white bread into 14 even slices without crushing the crumb. A baker in Brooklyn used hers from 1953 to 1992 for the same daily loaf. Carbon steel held an edge longer than the stainless steel that replaced it in the 1970s, and the serration broke through hard crusts where a smooth blade tore. The pre-sliced sandwich loaf at the supermarket today is sliced by a factory bandsaw and bagged with preservatives that keep it soft for 3 weeks. A homemade loaf cut by a 1955 carbon steel knife stays softer for 3 days because the slice is clean. The crumb is whole. Bread eaten the day it is cut tastes different, like nothing in the bakery aisle. A used carbon steel knife is $12 at any estate sale, half the price of a new one and twice the cutting tool. Sharpen it once a month with a steel rod, and it will outlast your stove. Number 3. Stone mortar and pestle. A volcanic basalt molcajete bought at the Mercado de Abastos in Guadalajara in 1959 ground the Sunday salsa for a San Antonio family every week for 32 years. The mortar was 3-legged basalt, the tegelote pestle was the same stone, and a grandmother seasoned hers with raw rice and garlic the first week before she trusted it to hold tomato. The oils released into the paste because the stone crushed without heating, and the heat was what destroyed flavor in a metal blade spinning 10,000 times a minute. A blender chops, the mortar grinds. The texture is rough where it should be rough and smooth where it should be smooth, and the salsa carries the bite of the toasted chile de árbol along with the sweetness of the roasted tomato. A paste from a stone molcajete carries the whole flavor of the spice, like the whole spice itself, and a paste from a blender carries half. The stone tool weighed 7 pounds and sat on the counter every day. It never needed a power outlet. It is sold today as a kitchen showpiece, but it was first your everyday tool. Number 2. Cast iron jar lifter. The lifter was a pair of cast iron tongs with rubber-coated jaws shaped to grip a mason jar at the neck. A farmer's wife in Iowa used hers every August through October for 30 straight years to lift hot quart jars out of a boiling water bath. John L. Mason patented the original threaded jar lid in 1858, and by the Depression years, Ball Brothers Glass in Muncie, Indiana, was the largest domestic maker of home canning jars. The jar lifter went into every household that put up tomatoes, green beans, peaches, applesauce. The plastic jar lifter sold today flexes under a full quart and slips on the boil. But the 1947 cast iron version grips, lifts, and lasts a lifetime. Every farmhouse needed one for the canning weeks. Most farmhouses still have one in a drawer somewhere. The cast iron tongs are $12 at any estate sale today, and a fresh pair from a kitchen store costs only $20. Either one will lift 4 dozen quart jars without a single drop or burn. Number 1. Enamel coffee percolator. The steady perk of a tall enamel pot over a Vermont kitchen burner in 1955 is the smell that opened the day. The water rose through a metal stem, fell over the basket of grounds, and circulated until the brew turned dark and the kitchen filled with the smell. A 12-cup Miro percolator sat on the breakfast table of half the households in America in the 1950s, when electric percolators held over 50% of the home coffee market and were a common wedding gift. The drip machine that replaced it in the 1970s makes a thinner cup in less time and with less sound. The percolator made a stronger cup that smelled across the house and out the screen door. And one detail, seldom mentioned in any catalog, lands here. Coffee from a percolator on Sunday morning was the smell of being home. Most American kitchens lost it 40 years ago. The pot still works on any modern burner. The wood stove is the only thing missing. Vinegar added to poaching water was the difference between restaurant-quality poached eggs and stringy disasters. Grandma's eggs held together in perfect teardrops, whites wrapped snugly around golden yolks without wispy tentacles floating everywhere. Her secret was splashing white vinegar into simmering water before cracking eggs into the pot. The acid caused whites to coagulate faster, setting the outer layer before it could drift apart. This created compact, beautiful eggs rather than ragged messes. The amount didn't need to be precise. A tablespoon or 2 per quart was plenty, and vinegar flavor cooked away completely. Grandma also swirled water gently before dropping eggs, creating a vortex helping whites wrap around yolks. She knew to use the freshest eggs since older ones had thinner whites that spread regardless. This simple addition transformed a frustrating task into something achievable.
Wall-mounted can openers, a familiar tool in mid-20th century kitchens, epitomize the era's pursuit of practicality and convenience. These devices, fixed onto kitchen walls, were a small but crucial part of daily cooking routines. As kitchen gadgets evolved, these once essential tools gave way to more versatile and portable options. The wall-mounted can opener, though now seldom seen, serves as a reminder of a time when kitchen accessories were designed for simplicity and efficiency, tailored to the needs of the day. Invented in the early 20th century, these can openers were a solution to the cumbersome process of opening metal cans, a common packaging method for many food items. The shift towards easier-to-open packaging and the advent of more ergonomic handheld can openers rendered the wall-mounted version obsolete, reflecting the ever-evolving nature of kitchen convenience.
Number 22. Salt curing pork in the smokehouse. The hog was killed the first cold week of December in 1955 when the temperature held below 40 for 3 days straight. Jewel and her husband used 10 pounds of salt for every 100 pounds of meat. They rubbed it into the shoulder, the belly, the ham, every crevice. The meat went on waist-high shelves in the log smokehouse and sat for 6 weeks while the winter cold did the work a refrigerator would have done. Then a low hickory fire was built under the meat for 2 days until the ham turned mahogany. That ham hung in the smokehouse through the next summer. One hog fed the family for a year. Back then, a pound of cured ham at the Blairsville store cost 69 cents, but a home-cured ham from a home-raised hog cost nothing but salt and patience. And that is the math your great-grandmother ran every December. Cast iron seasoning secrets were guarded knowledge that grandmothers demonstrated through decades of daily cooking rather than explaining outright. Those black skillets passed down through generations developed surfaces so slick that eggs slid around without a drop of oil needed. Grandma never used soap on her cast iron, just hot water, a stiff brush, and immediate drying over a warm burner to prevent rust. After every use, she rubbed a thin layer of lard across the entire surface while still warm, building layers of polymerized fat that created natural nonstick protection better than any factory coating. She knew acidic foods could strip seasoning and cook tomatoes elsewhere. She understood slow heating prevented warping. These skillets outlasted every fancy coated pan store's sell, working better each passing year. The tragedy is how many perfectly seasoned pieces sit neglected in estate sales because new generations never learned their proper care.
The mid-20th century saw Formica countertops bring a revolution in kitchen design. Known for their affordability and diverse designs, they injected a burst of color and style into American kitchens. These countertops weren't just for meal prep, they symbolized the growing design awareness of that period. Formica, being easy to clean and durable, was a practical choice for families after the war, reflecting the shift towards more vibrant and personalized home interiors. Formica's invention in 1912 as a substitute for mica in electrical insulation later found its way into home decor, offering an affordable, attractive surface. However, with the advent of natural stone and engineered materials in modern kitchens, Formica's popularity has diminished, though it still holds a place in retro and mid-century modern designs.
Number 18. Salt-rising bread leavened by wild microbes. This was the loaf that nobody else in Jewel's Holler could make anymore. She kept a starter going from her grandmother's time, a mash of cornmeal, warm milk, and a pinch of salt, left overnight in a crock wrapped in a wool blanket behind the cookstove. By morning it smelled sharp, like very ripe cheese, and it hissed faintly when she opened it. That smell meant the wild bacteria, Clostridium perfringens, was alive and working. She did not know the Latin name of the microbe. She knew the crock had to stay at blood temperature, about 104 degrees, for 16 hours or the starter would die. Salt-rising bread has no yeast. It is leavened by hydrogen gas from a wild bacterium found in flour itself, and the technique was invented by pioneer women in these mountains in the 1770s, before yeast was sold in packets at the store. The earliest recorded recipe dates to 1778 in what is now West Virginia. The loaf is dense, white, almost cheesy. Jewel baked 2 a week and traded one to the neighbor who kept her in sorghum. What most people miss is that every woman on Coosa Creek who knew this starter learned it from a woman, back to the Scots-Irish women who carried wheat flour over the Blue Ridge and had no yeast at all. That tradition almost died with Jewel's generation. If your great-grandmother was Appalachian, she likely knew the smell. You can still start one tonight with cornmeal and a warm place to hide it. Stale bread revived with water was grandmother's refusal to waste a single slice when the loaf turned hard and dry overnight. Instead of tossing it for the birds or grinding it into crumbs, she ran the entire loaf quickly under the faucet, letting water dampen the crust without soaking through to the center. Then she wrapped it tightly in foil and placed it in a hot oven for 10 minutes. The bread emerged soft, warm, and steaming as if freshly baked that morning. The water turned to steam inside the foil, rehydrating the crumb while the crust crisped up perfectly. This trick worked for rolls, baguettes, and any yeast bread that had dried out on the counter. Children couldn't tell the difference between revived bread and fresh, and families stretched their grocery dollars further. The technique represented Grandma's fundamental belief that food deserved respect and second chances before being discarded.
In the grand homes of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the butler's pantry was a symbol of elegance and sophistication. This specialized space, used for storing and preparing to serve meals, was a key feature of high social standing. The butler's pantry was not merely a storage area, but an integral part of the home's entertaining and dining experience. As home designs and lifestyles evolved, this once crucial room became less common, transforming into modern kitchen storage solutions. The butler's pantry, with its distinguished function, reminds us of a time when dining and hospitality were elaborate rituals. The decline of large domestic staffs and the trend towards more casual dining experiences in the latter part of the 20th century led to the disappearance of the butler's pantry, as homes favored more open, integrated spaces for cooking and entertaining.
Number 13, vinegar pie when the fruit ran out. March was the hungry month. The root cellar was mostly empty. The dried apples were gone. The fresh berries were 2 months away. Jewel still wanted a pie for Sunday dinner. She made vinegar pie. 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, a cup of sorghum, 2 eggs, a spoon of butter, a spoon of flour, poured into a lard crust shell and baked 40 minutes in the wood oven. The vinegar hit the sugar and tasted impossibly like a lemon custard. It was what a Depression-era cook called a desperation pie. The recipe first showed up in a Pennsylvania newspaper in 1859. It kept Sunday dinner looking like Sunday dinner through every lean march on the ridge. A lemon in Blairsville in March cost 15 cents, and the store usually did not have one. Vinegar cost almost nothing. Your great-grandmother may have served you one and called it chess pie. Same trick, different name. A pinch of salt in coffee was Grandma's answer to bitter brews that made faces pucker and stomachs clench. She didn't add sugar to mask bad coffee. She prevented bitterness with a few grains of salt added to grounds before percolating. Salt ions blocked taste receptors perceiving bitterness, allowing coffee's natural sweetness and complexity to shine. This worked especially well with cheaper blends and older beans that lost freshness, turning mediocre coffee into something smooth. During the Depression, when families couldn't afford quality beans, this trick made every pot palatable without expensive cream or sugar. Grandma added salt so instinctively she never measured. Just a pinch between fingers dropped into the basket. Visitors commented on how smooth her coffee tasted, never guessing the secret in the salt shaker. Modern baristas rediscovered this technique, but for decades it lived only in Grandmother's muscle memory.
Electric coil stoves marked a significant advancement in kitchen technology. Prior to the sleek designs of modern stoves, these coil stoves were a wonder, introducing safety and convenience into cooking. They represented the relentless quest for technological progress in the 20th century, changing the entire approach to meal preparation. Their widespread adoption signaled a move away from traditional cooking methods, highlighting the era's embrace of innovation in daily life. These stoves, which began gaining popularity in the early 1900s, used electrical resistance to generate heat. However, the evolution of kitchen appliances brought in glass-top electric stoves and induction cookers, offering better safety features, efficiency, and aesthetic appeal, gradually phasing out the old coil stoves.
Number 19. Self-rising flour mixed at home from plain flour. The town store in Blairsville sold Martha White self-rising flour for 22 cents, more a bag than plain flour. Jewel did the math. She bought plain white lily flour in 25-pound sacks and mixed her own every Monday morning. 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt for every cup of flour. She blended it in a crock and kept it covered on the pantry shelf. Over a year, the savings added up to a pair of work boots, which in 1955 ran $7.95 at the Sears catalog. Nobody in town talked about it, because the women who did it had been taught by grandmothers who could not always read a label. They were not about to pay someone else for something they could mix in a crock. it is still the simplest hack you can teach your daughter in under 2 minutes. Butter wrappers saved for greasing pans represented Grandma's understanding that nothing useful should ever hit the trash bin. Every time she unwrapped butter, that waxy paper went into a refrigerator container, accumulating until needed. When pans required greasing, Grandma rubbed residual butter across surfaces with perfect economy. The thin coating was exactly right, enough to prevent sticking without excess fat making baked goods greasy or cookies spread too thin. Children learned to save wrappers automatically. The practice meant never dirtying a brush or wasting whole butter pats on greasing duties. Those wrappers worked better than cooking sprays because they left no chemical aftertaste and created even coverage. During wartime rationing, when butter was precious, this became essential survival knowledge. Today, we throw away perfectly good wrappers without a second thought.
The central vacuum cleaner, once a sign of luxury in larger or upscale homes, epitomized domestic innovation in the mid-20th century. This system, integrated into the house's structure, offered a glimpse into an era where home convenience was highly valued. Central vacuum systems were more than cleaning tools. They were indicative of a modern, sophisticated home. As portable vacuum cleaners grew more efficient and accessible, central systems became a thing of the past. However, their existence in older homes continues to fascinate us, representing the period's aspiration for seamless, integrated home technology. Initially designed to reduce the spread of dust and allergens, these built-in systems lost favor as smaller, more powerful, and maneuverable vacuums became available, offering greater convenience without the need for permanent installation.
Number 15. Lye soap for cutting grease off iron skillets. Jewel made lye soap once a year, the first week after hog killing in December 1955. She poured rainwater through a barrel of hickory ash to draw off the lye, then stirred the lye into a kettle of rendered hog fat over a slow fire until it traced. She poured it into a wooden trough and cut it into bars after 2 days. That soap was not pretty. It was tan, rough, and it smelled like the barnyard. A sliver of it, rubbed on a greasy wash rag, cut grease off the floor, the table, the children's knees, and the black iron cookpots in one pass. She never used it on the seasoned skillet. Lye soap would have stripped the black right off. She kept it for the plain iron and the kitchen floor. The hog gave her a year's worth of soap in one afternoon. A bar of ivory at the store cost 10 cents in 1955. Jewel made 40 bars from one hog. Your great-grandmother did not buy soap for decades. Flour sack towels served purposes modern kitchen linens simply cannot match, and Grandma kept stacks for every task imaginable. These weren't purchased. They came from fabric bags that flour and sugar were packaged in. The cotton was tightly woven, lint-free, and incredibly absorbent, perfect for straining homemade cheese, covering rising bread dough, and drying dishes without streaks. Grandma bleached them white for kitchen use, but some women sewed printed versions into children's clothing and quilts. The towels improved with washing, becoming softer over years rather than falling apart like paper towels. They could be sterilized with boiling water for canning season and wrapped around delicate items for storage. When one finally wore thin, it became a cleaning rag, then patches for other towels. The journey from flour packaging to dust rag took decades, demonstrating a relationship with materials that disposable culture has abandoned.
Picture a small door built into the wall for milk deliveries. That's the milk door for you. Popular until the mid-20th century, these doors were an ingenious response to daily milk delivery, ensuring milk was kept safe and easily accessible. The existence of milk doors in homes serves as a reminder of a time before modern refrigeration, when fresh milk was a doorstep away. This feature underscores the practical innovations of the past, addressing the daily necessities of households. The milk door, a unique American innovation, became obsolete with the rise of widespread home refrigeration and changing milk delivery practices. Its disappearance marks the end of an era when direct delivery of perishables was a part of everyday life.
The bacon grease jar was the most sacred vessel in Grandma's kitchen, sitting on the back of the stove collecting liquid gold from every breakfast. Every time bacon sizzled, the rendered drippings were strained through cheesecloth into a mason jar, building a reserve of smoky richness. That grease-seasoned cast iron skillets, started gravies, fried eggs with incomparable depth, and gave cornbread its signature crispy bottom that modern recipes never achieve. Grandma used it for greasing cake pans, adding richness to green beans, and starting any dish that needed savory depth. The practice saved money when butter was expensive and shortening tasted flat. Children watched mothers reach for that jar instinctively, understanding nothing went to waste. Today's cooks toss bacon fat down the drain, never knowing they're discarding the ingredient that made grandmother's cooking taste like home.
Before the advent of the modern refrigerator was the icebox, a staple in every home. This forerunner to today's fridges used blocks of ice to keep food fresh. Constructed typically from wood and lined with insulating materials like sawdust or cork, the icebox was a symbol of the transition from old-fashioned to modern kitchen appliances. In an era where food preservation was a daily struggle, the icebox's straightforward yet effective design was a clever solution. The icebox, a mainstay in homes before the 1930s, relied on frequent deliveries of large ice blocks, which would gradually melt away. The development of electric refrigerators offering consistent cooling without the need for ice led to the decline of the icebox, transforming it from a necessity to a piece of history.
Number 24. Seasoning cast iron with hog lard. Jules' skillet was 22 years old in 1955. Her husband's mother had given it to her in 1933 as a wedding gift. It had never been washed with soap, and it never would be. Once or twice a year, she rubbed a thin layer of rendered hog lard inside it, set it upside down over the open firebox of the cook stove, and let it bake until the smoke stopped rising. That was the old way, passed down through generations. Every meal built another layer of black on the iron. The surface turned glassy. Nothing stuck, and her skillet was not a pan anymore. It was a record of every meal ever cooked in it. But what most people miss is that a properly seasoned skillet outlasts 3 non-stick pans from the store. Jules' daughter still uses that same skillet today. You can season your own the same way, with the same hog lard. A powerful tool, passed down without a receipt. Onion skins for dyeing Easter eggs produced colors that store-bought tablets could never match: deep amber, rusty brown, and burnished gold that looked like treasures. Grandma saved yellow and brown skins for weeks before Easter, stuffing them into paper bags. Eggs wrapped in those papery skins, secured with rubber bands, then simmered gently in water with vinegar to help color adhere. Results were stunning natural marbling effects, each egg emerging unique. Some grandmothers pressed small leaves against shells before wrapping, creating botanical prints impossibly delicate. Red onion skins produced lavender tones, while yellow created deep golds. This connected families to centuries of tradition when synthetic dyes didn't exist. The eggs were completely safe since onion skins were food grade. Children gathered watching eggs transform, learning patience and appreciating beauty from simple natural sources.
Dumbwaiters, common in multi-story homes and buildings of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, were small yet impactful inventions. These mini elevators, designed to transport items between floors, showcased the era's ingenuity in maximizing space and functionality. Before the ease of modern elevators, dumbwaiters were a practical solution for transporting items, especially in larger homes. As architectural styles and technologies progressed, the use of dumbwaiters declined, but their existence in older buildings remains a charming testament to a bygone era of practical innovation. Initially, these mechanical devices were a sign of affluence and efficiency in large homes or commercial buildings like hotels and restaurants. However, with the advent of more sophisticated elevating solutions and changes in building designs, the need for dumbwaiters decreased, relegating them to a quaint feature of historical interest.
Number 20. Buttermilk made from clabbered milk and vinegar. Real buttermilk came from the churn after butter was made, and on weeks when Jewel did not churn, she still needed the sour tang for biscuits and cornbread. She poured a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar into a cup of whole milk from her Guernsey cow, stirred once, and set it on the warm edge of the cook stove for 5 minutes. The milk curdled. It smelled like the real thing. The acid cut through the baking soda the same way. Biscuits rose tall. Cornbread rose proud. In 1955, a quart of store-bought buttermilk at the A&P cost 18 cents. A tablespoon of vinegar cost less than a penny. Every mountain woman on Coosa Creek knew this substitution. You can still do it in your own kitchen tonight. Whole milk, apple cider vinegar, 5 minutes. It has worked for 100 years. It will work for you. Wrapping green tomatoes in newspaper for ripening extended tomato season weeks past first frost, turning potential waste into winter abundance. When cold threatened gardens, Grandma harvested every tomato, regardless of color. Each was individually wrapped in newspaper, not plastic, never touching each other, and stored in basement boxes. Paper trapped ethylene gas tomatoes naturally produced while ripening, concentrating it around each fruit to speed the process. Separation prevented one spoiling tomato from affecting neighbors. Every few days, Grandma checked her stash, pulling newly reddened tomatoes for immediate use while leaving green ones to continue transforming. This provided fresh tomatoes well into November, when grocery store varieties tasted like cardboard. Children helped with wrapping, learning the harvest didn't end when weather turned cold. That newspaper became packaging extending the garden's gifts for weeks beyond its natural season.
In the early to mid-20th century, pull-down ironing boards were a common feature, ingeniously built into kitchen or laundry room walls. These space-saving designs reflected the era's emphasis on practicality and efficiency in home organization. Pull-down ironing boards were more than mere household tools. They were clever solutions to space constraints, exemplifying the mid-century mindset of maximizing utility in every part of the home. As homes expanded and lifestyles evolved, these built-in boards became less common, replaced by portable versions. Yet their presence in older homes today harks back to a time when innovative design seamlessly integrated daily chores into the fabric of the home. These boards, often hidden in cabinets or behind panels, provided easy access for quick ironing tasks without the need for setting up a freestanding board. The rise of casual clothing styles requiring less frequent ironing, along with the preference for separate laundry areas, led to the gradual disappearance of these built-in ironing solutions.
Wooden spoon across the pot prevented boil-over disasters that left stovetops covered in starchy foam and required hours of scrubbing. Grandma laid a wooden spoon horizontally across the top of any pot cooking pasta, rice, or potatoes, and somehow the water never climbed over the rim. The science involved temperature differences. Wood doesn't conduct heat like metal, so bubbles contacting the cooler spoon popped before they could cascade over. The dry surface also burst the foam's surface tension. This simple trick meant Grandma could step away from the stove to tend other tasks without returning to find a mess spreading across the burners. She didn't know the physics, but she knew the wooden spoon worked every single time. Children learned this instinctively, placing spoons across pots without being told, carrying the habit into their own kitchens decades later. It cost nothing and prevented countless cleanup headaches. Number 23. Leather britches beans strung on thread. In late August of 1955, the green beans came in by the bushel, and Jewel could not can them all. The glass jars cost money. Lids were still rationed in her memory from the war. So she sat on the cabin porch with a tin bowl of half-runner beans, a sewing needle, and a length of white cotton thread. She ran the needle through the middle of each bean and slid it down the thread like a bead. A full string held 100 beans. She hung the strings from the rafters of the cabin loft out of the sun and let them shrivel for 6 weeks. They looked like small leather breeches that had been soaked and dried. Back then, every cabin in Union County had strings of them swinging in the loft. Come January, she dropped a handful into a pot with fatback and water and simmered them 4 hours. Supper cost nothing but time. A quart jar of canned beans cost 14 cents. But leather breeches cost 0. Multiply by 40 supper nights and you see why she strung them every year. Eggshells in the coffee pot produced the smoothest, least bitter coffee that modern filters and expensive machines still cannot replicate. Grandma crushed clean eggshells and added them directly to the coffee grounds before brewing in her percolator. The calcium carbonate in shells neutralized coffee's acidic compounds, while the shells themselves attracted and trapped bitter sediments that would otherwise cloud the brew. The result was remarkably clean-tasting coffee with a mellow smoothness that seemed almost creamy. This technique dated back generations when coffee was often coarse ground and percolators were the only brewing method available. Grandma saved shells specifically for this purpose, rinsing and drying them before crushing. Visitors always commented on how her coffee tasted different, better, smoother, more drinkable than anywhere else. She never revealed her secret, letting them wonder what expensive brand she used when the answer sat right there in the compost bowl. Number 14. Eggshells dropped into the coffee pot. Jewel drank her coffee strong and clear. She used a blue enamel percolator on the cook stove, coarse ground Louisiane that cost 31 cents a pound, and a trick her grandmother had taught her back in 1910. After she scooped the grounds into the basket, she crushed one clean eggshell in her fist and tossed it on top of the grounds. The albumin in the shell bound the grounds together and pulled them to the bottom of the pot. The alkaline calcium carbonate cut the bitter edge off the acid. The coffee came out smooth and amber, not muddy. An egg a week was a cheap price for clear coffee. This was a working trick every cattle drive cook in the West used in the 1880s. The mountain women had it too, and they used it without knowing it was famous. The shell went in the scrap bucket and fed the chickens. Your grandmother's coffee may have tasted better than yours for this reason. The bread heel trick for keeping brown sugar soft was grandmother's clever solution that cost nothing but solved everything. Brown sugar turned into a brick within days of opening, requiring a hammer to break apart. Grandma simply dropped a bread heel, the end piece nobody wanted anyway, into the container and sealed it tight. Within hours, rock-hard sugar transformed into soft, scoopable sweetness. Bread released moisture slowly, rehydrating the molasses coating without making sugar wet or clumpy. This hack turned kitchen scraps into problem solvers, using unwanted bread ends children pushed aside. Some grandmothers used apple slices or orange peels instead, adding subtle flavor while restoring texture. The trick worked for weeks, keeping sugar ready for cookies and oatmeal. Modern cooks buy expensive terracotta discs, never knowing a simple bread heel could solve the problem. Number 14. Eggshells dropped into the coffee pot. Jewel drank her coffee strong and clear. She used a blue enamel percolator on the cook stove, coarse ground Louisiane that cost 31 cents a pound, and a trick her grandmother had taught her back in 1910. After she scooped the grounds into the basket, she crushed one clean eggshell in her fist and tossed it on top of the grounds. The albumin in the shell bound the grounds together and pulled them to the bottom of the pot. The alkaline calcium carbonate cut the bitter edge off the acid. The coffee came out smooth and amber, not muddy. An egg a week was a cheap price for clear coffee. This was a working trick every cattle drive cook in the West used in the 1880s. The mountain women had it too, and they used it without knowing it was famous. The shell went in the scrap bucket and fed the chickens. Your grandmother's coffee may have tasted better than yours for this reason. Adding a pinch of coffee grounds to gravy was grandmother's secret weapon for achieving deep, mysterious richness that made Sunday dinners unforgettable. Nobody could identify what made her gravy different. Darker, more complex, with savory depth that lingered. A tiny spoonful of unused grounds stirred into pan drippings before adding flour created gravy that tasted like it simmered for hours. Coffee didn't make gravy taste like breakfast. It enhanced meaty, roasted flavors while adding professional-looking color. This worked especially well with beef and pork gravies, where slight bitterness balanced meat-fat richness. Grandma learned it from her mother during hard times when stretching flavor meant stretching resources. The grounds also helped thicken gravy slightly. Modern recipes never mention this addition, leaving cooks wondering why their results taste flat compared to Grandma's legendary version. Number 12. Corn shucks as pan liners and tamale wrappers. The corn came in the third week of August 1955. Jewel pulled the shucks off by the wagon load, dried them in the barn loft, and kept 3 tied bundles in the kitchen all winter. She lined the bottom of the cast-iron Dutch oven with a layer of dry shucks before she dropped a roast in. The shucks kept the meat off the direct iron, kept the bottom from scorching, and added a faint, sweet, grassy smoke to the gravy. She wrapped hoe cakes in damp shucks to steam them over the coals. Back then, parchment paper was not sold anywhere in Union County. A roll of waxed paper at the A&P cost 19 cents. A corn shuck cost nothing, decomposed in the garden and did the work of parchment. You can try it tonight if you have an ear of corn on the counter. Your grandmother knew it. The food industry hoped you would forget. Milk added to scrambled eggs made them impossibly fluffy and creamy, stretching precious protein further while improving texture. Grandma whisked a splash of milk, never water, into beaten eggs before they hit the hot skillet. The milk proteins interacted with egg proteins during cooking, creating a softer curd that stayed moist rather than turning rubbery. This also added volume, making 3 eggs serve like 4 and stretching breakfast to feed one more hungry child. She cooked them low and slow, stirring constantly with a wooden spoon, removing the pan from heat before they looked fully done since residual heat finished the cooking. The result was eggs so tender they barely held together, nothing like the dry scrambled eggs served at diners. Some grandmothers added cream for even richer results, but milk worked beautifully for everyday breakfasts when dairy was measured carefully. Number 11. Kilt greens wilted in hot bacon grease. Wild greens grew everywhere on the ridge. Dandelion in early April. Poke in late April, boiled twice to take out the poison. Creasy greens along the creek bank. Jewel picked a mess of them into her apron, washed them 3 times in a tin bucket, and dropped them into a skillet of screaming hot bacon grease. The greens collapsed in 12 seconds. A splash of vinegar, a pinch of salt. That was supper. The mountain women called it kilt greens because the hot grease killed the bitter edge. Those greens had more iron and calcium per plate than the head of iceberg lettuce the A&P sold for 14 cents. They cost Jewel nothing but a walk to the creek. Every bite carried the smoke of a pig that was already gone. Your grandmother probably ate a mess of them every week from March through November and lived to be 91. Ice water for flaky pie crust was the non-negotiable rule that separated Grandma's legendary pies from the dense, tough failures other cooks produced. She kept a glass of ice water on the counter and added it tablespoon by tablespoon to her flour and shortening mixture, using only enough to bring the dough together. The cold was essential because it kept the fat from melting before the crust hit the oven. Those tiny pieces of solid shortening created steam pockets during baking, which produced the flaky layers that made pie crust shatter delicately with each bite. Warm water would melt the fat immediately, resulting in a tough, chewy crust nobody wanted to eat. Grandma also chilled her mixing bowl and handled the dough as little as possible, understanding that warmth from hands could ruin everything. These small details separated her Thanksgiving pies from everyone else's attempts. Number 10. Clabbered milk as a starter for cornbread. On hot August days, the fresh milk from the Guernsey clabbered on the kitchen counter within 6 hours. In a modern house, that is spoiled milk thrown in the trash. In Jewel's 1955 kitchen, it was a prize. She used the thick, tangy clabber in place of buttermilk in her cornbread, and the cornbread rose taller, browned deeper, and tasted sharper than anything made with fresh milk. Clabber was also the working starter for biscuits, pancakes, and a sour porridge her grandmother called Bonnie Clabber, which the Irish had brought over in the 1700s. That was the whole point. Milk did not go bad in a mountain kitchen. It went to the next stage, right down to the last spoon of whey used to feed the hogs. Your grandmother knew this cycle by heart. She would be confused by the idea of pouring milk down the drain because the date on the carton said so. Pick one. Bring it home. The tools on this list were not lost because they failed. They were stocked beside cheaper plastic until the plastic looked easier, and a generation that knew better stopped buying the better tool. A Foley food mill, a Pyrex measuring cup, a Wagner cast iron skillet, an enamel percolator. Tell us below which tool your mother kept inside her back drawer or set out near the stove. Most American kitchens between 1940 and 1975 had the same 7 or 8 tools. They worked because they were simple, and they lasted because nothing in them could break that an 8-year-old could not fix. Bring one back this week. Your food will taste different by the second meal.